We should just start by laughing hysterically.
Johnny Helm, musician, singer-songwriter. I'm so glad that you're continuing to do music.
I am.
And you are doing Blue Note Hawaii. You got 2 shows on December 14th.
December 14th, 6 o'clock show, 8:30 show.
When I would see you performing around town, around Hawaii, you would be guitar, acoustic guitar, maybe an accompaniment.
Mm-hmm.
But you've got a full band, and before you got into the full band that you're playing with, is this a new thing that you're moving forward with? How did that come about?
Well, I'm friends with all the guys, so I've played with all of them individually, but we never really played together as a band. Mm-hmm. Well, I don't know if it was before the pandemic or right after we started doing stuff, but I think I like to do it every once in a while just because I don't really get to play my tunes all that much. And so when I'm in Waikiki, I might play like, I don't know, 4 or 5 a night, whereas this is just all originals and presented in the way that I recorded them, because usually, like you said, I'm solo, so I don't get to really play the songs the way that they were intended to be performed, I guess. So so I have Imua Garza on guitar. I have Sean Pimentel on drums, Michael Grande on keyboards, John Cruz on bass, Jenny Yim opening the show, and then we have Kala'i Parrish going to do about 3 songs in the middle of the set. So it's going to be kind of like a little bit of a variety of things going on. But the last time we did it was great. It was a lot of fun. And I think everybody had fun that came to see it. And I think the players also had fun. And I had a blast.
When you're doing music now with this full band, like you're presenting it, like you said, 2 shows, December 14th, 2022, BlueNoteHawaii.com.
You're so good at that.
With Mahalo. The way that you are approaching music, is it always going to be a full band when you continue touring? Because earlier this year, I saw that you were on the road. You were doing some dates on the East Coast because you're originally from Connecticut.
No, I would say probably not going to continue doing this as like a regular thing, more of like, a few times a year type thing. Well, it's hard to draw often if you're doing the same set all the time. And so Waikiki, I'm lucky because the crowds, it's always changing. It's never the same. And so I think that if I tried to do a band thing all the time, it wouldn't be as special, and therefore I don't know that people would come all the time. So if I do it 3 times a year, I feel like it's more of a, it's more of a treat maybe for people that like to see me. And I just don't want to beat them over the head with it too much. And the mainland thing was, those were guys I had gone to high school with. We'd never really played together either, but we had been talking online about getting together and doing a set. And so we rented out my old elementary school.
Can we talk about that?
Yeah.
Because years ago, well, we worked at the same radio cluster. When you first got into radio broadcasting, it was actually via kind of a music vehicle too, because you were introduced into the local music scene.
Yep.
You befriended a lot of people, but there was an individual in Hawaii radio and Honolulu radio that you became very good friends with, Willie Moku. So if we can just kind of go back in time to just go over that once again.
So I was working at World Cafe in Restaurant Row.
And you were going to school still?
Not at that time, no. I'd already graduated by that time.
And what was your...
wildlife biology.
Yes.
But I did go to KCC for a semester. That was in 93. But I got into radio because Willie saw me strumming along at Ellsworth Simeona's gig. Ellsworth let me jump up. And he's like, hey, come in and record. So I recorded in the studio with him.
The radio studio.
Your production studio that you worked out of. Yeah. And I realized I loved the environment and I loved being in there. And I knew it was close to like recording, not quite, but it was in the same ballpark. And I didn't know how else to get into the music industry. And he asked if I wanted to intern, and I did. And during that time, I realized I kind of was I liked the production side better than the radio broadcasting side. I just was too nervous. And so he kind of like passed me off to Afu Dara York, who became my mentor. And that's where I learned the kind of the ropes of recording.
That was in the 1990s, 1990s.
I would say, probably 97-ish.
Radio in 2020s, totally different as far as the equipment we use, the way we are on the radio, how we get music and all that kind of stuff. When you talk about interning with Willie Moku and doing production, what did that involve with Willie Moku when he was broadcasting on the radio versus when you're working with Afun doing production? Because it's like air quotes.
Yeah, no, yeah. I think Willie wanted me to talk, but I didn't know. Like now that I had, later on gone through and been on the air and been on radio for a while, I realized now he just wanted me to talk with him. So he'd ask me questions and I would be silent. I just wouldn't say anything. And he'd be like, say something, dude. And I thought I was just supposed to be quiet because we were in the station. You're supposed to always be quiet.
Yeah,
Didn't
the
realize
on-air light.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I never took advantage of that. Mainly I would he'd have his commercials for the hour, and they were on carts or cassettes, like
that looked like 8-track tapes.
Yeah. And so I would line up his carts for his set, and then I would put him back. At that time, I feel like he was still spinning CDs. He was still spinning CDs at that time. I think we were just on the verge of flipping to computers, but not quite yet. We had a couple more year run for that. And a lot of the guys that were, when I was in the production side, a lot of those guys were still recording their commercials to a tape. So they were recording on a multi-track tape machine, whereas Darrow had switched over to computers. So I actually got to learn both, which was really cool. Just to have that skill set to do both. I don't really record on tape anymore, although I do have a tape machine at my house. Yeah, I was able to, and I think it's important to learn the tape too, because you can kind of see how tape evolved into the digital world and how the DAWs or the digital audio workstations were set up so that it would be intuitive to switch from tape to computers. Anyways, I don't know if that makes any sense.
No, that's good. When it came to using tape, we would use the reel over and over, and like we would learn how to use the magnet to erase it. If you don't erase it correctly, you would get that warble in the background.
Sure. Yep.
But it was a precious commodity. There was like a limited amount of recording you could do. Where digital is like you can go for broke and
keep going and keep going and keep going and keep going
until it's perfect. Yeah. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
So the switching over, when you got into doing music, when did you make the leap to confidently, comfortably just do music full time away from a 9 to 5? 9 to 5, air quotes with that.
Happened probably about 10 years later. Was in 2007 or 8-ish. Maybe started in 2006, but I didn't take the leap until 2007 or 8. But I had gotten a few gigs, and I was the production director for Visionary, maybe. I don't think they exist anymore, so I think it's okay. So I had 5 stations, and I wasn't being paid well enough for me. I don't think I would have been paid well enough for anybody, for that matter. And I realized that if I had gotten a couple more of my gigs, that I could probably make about the same amount of money. And so once I lined up enough gigs, I took the jump. I've only done music since then. Yeah.
You have how many albums now in actual released form?
Release form, 5, I think. 5.
And they're all at johnnyhelm.com?
I think they're all at Spotify or those places. One of them's not, but it's one of my first ones, and I'm glad I did it, and I look back and I'm proud of it, but I wouldn't want anybody to listen to it. So, yeah, there's that.
So, because you started doing music, really entertaining the idea of doing original music, then you were actually doing the thing. Now you're doing the thing in Hawaii, which is amazing. But this year in 2022, hooking up with friends from, was it small kid time or high school or college?
No, that was, so those guys were all, 2 of them were people that I just looked up to when I was in high school. They were older. We had a really very good music program in our school. I was kicked out at a very young age for misbehaving, but
what's the name of this school?
It's called Hall High School.
Okay.
Yeah. And, they put out some really, really cool jazz musicians. And one of them, his name was Brad Ellis. And I don't think he was professional, but he has a real job. But I just remember him being amazing. And so I hit him up and was like, I'm going to be in town. Let's do this gig. And then this drummer that I used to really look up to also was like, yeah, let's do the gig. And then we hired a guy from Northampton, Massachusetts that used to play with John Cruz. and he was just a great player. And we just had a great night at my old elementary school.
What were the names of the players for that night at your elementary school?
Jason Bazillion, Brad Ellis, Joe Boyle. Joe Boyle's a guitar player. He's amazing. He's he's just a great player and just a great guy.
Why the elementary school? The acoustics are amazing.
No, we played at the University of Hartford. Me and Jason, the drummer, had played with Joe once before at the University of Hartford, like 2 or 3 before the pandemic. A sound system there. It wasn't designed to have a sound system. It was like a live room.
Okay.
And so we were just like, where could we do it? And I was trying to think of somewhere that would be affordable, that has a stage that everybody in town knew. And I was like, I should just rent the old elementaries because they do have a cool theater there. And so, we just got one of my other buddies that has a sound company to come do sound. It was perfect.
Are you guys recording the Blue Note show?
I doubt it.
Is it just I mean, of course it's fun. Anytime you do play music, either solo or with fellow musicians, it's for fun.
Totally for fun. There's no other reason to do it. I mean, it's not like I'm not necessarily trying to get this band on the road or anything. We're here. We all work here, and we're all working musicians, and I'm happy with my life here, but it's just fun to get together and perform the songs live. So it's just for fun. Yeah.
For you guys to converge on one night, that's pretty incredible. When I had said about your albums being available, because another thing I've learned adulting is that musicians, singer-songwriters have a lot of songs everywhere, but not necessarily committed, lovingly recorded for
consumption.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, how about you? How many?
I'm like I said, I'm always proud of all the work I do, because it's a part of the journey. Even if I don't really like it and I don't really want someone to listen to it, I look at it as, okay, that's just part of the step. If I have to go back and say I'd want you to listen to something, it's probably back as far as a record called Banyan Tree, and anything before that. Like I said, I'm proud of it. It's just, I think I didn't sing it well. That's for me. Not the production was fine. It's very self-produced sounding, but I just didn't like my singing. I feel like I'm coming into my own with my singing because I think I tried too much to sound like my influences before. And now I feel like I just sing. So I feel like it's more comfortable for me to listen to. And I think it's when it's comfortable for me to listen to, it's probably comfortable for other people too, unless they just, I don't know. It feels more comfortable when I listen to myself.
That is so interesting. When you were starting out, were you more, you would just noodle on your guitar, or would you also sing too? Or like, how you are learning like a James Taylor song, and so you're like singing along so you know where the chord progressions.
Sure.
I don't know.
No, that's right. I think I always sang and played because when I started doing it, I just did it because I liked the bands that I was listening to and I wanted to be able to play them. So I was always singing and playing. I've never been a great guitar player, and it wasn't anything that like I put too much time into.
Where'd you gain the confidence to knock it out,
What do you mean?
To sing and perform.
Me and buddies from high school, we all started playing at the same time. We'd go down to Hartford, around the Hartford Civic Center where the Hartford Whalers play, and we would just sing there on the street. There was no one listening to us. I mean, there's barely anybody in Hartford at that time, on a Saturday afternoon. It just was a sleepy on Saturday afternoon around that time, but there was a hot dog stand. We'd play by the hot dog stand, or we had an open mic at the school we did. When I was in college, I was always playing. So I've always been just willing to throw it out there, even if it's awful. I think for a long time, I think I just probably wanted, there's like the wanted to be not necessarily a rock star, but be known as a musician. And I think there was a point where I came to be comfortable with myself, where I realized, okay, you're making money. I was probably during and after radio. I was like, you're already making money playing music. You're doing exactly what you would be doing if you were, say, a rock star or whatever. But you're making a living, and you don't need to travel. You don't need to do anything. And it's not like I gave up on a goal or anything like that, but I think I just got comfortable and happy doing what I'm doing and being okay with being a working musician and not having to worry about, the fame of it. And if I get praise for it, of course it feels good and I'll always feel good, but I'm happy. I think I'm just happy.
Have you written songs where you just can't believe that they're yours, that it's
Not
written? Oh.
It's funny that you should mention that because I say it's the song. Have you written the song yet? You know, I refer to the song as the one. Like, I feel like, for example, I always bring him up, but he's one of my biggest inspirations is John Cruz. He's playing bass on my gig. That guy's written a song. Like, he's got songs, multiple. And I feel like I don't quite have it yet. It's not, there's one song in particular that I think that I've written, which I'm very proud of, called Hat on My Head. And I feel like it's special for many reasons. That excluded, I don't feel like I've written the one yet. And I'm going to keep striving until I do. And I kind of hope I don't, because then I'll just keep going, right? But for me, I don't think I've written the one, not at the level that, you know, that I hear in other people.
I want, it's two sides, right? You deciding what that song is, and then it's like other people, how they respond to it. What are the songs that people come to you and say, I really love this, or, you know, I keep on coming back to this song or this album?
There's one called Jessica Roberts that seems to hit people. So that one for sure. That might be a song. You know what I mean? If I put it in like I haven't written a song yet, that one's a ringer. I think it usually is very emotional for people because it's emotional content. And I think everybody going through something listens to the song and they're like, oh, that's about my situation, because it's kind of generic not in the title because it's specifically about a person, but in the content. There's a couple others on my first album, Banyan Tree, called Light and Fine, and people seem to relate to those. But I think that's because the production on it was very good. It was done by a guy named Matt Honda, and I think he just produced them well. Yeah, I don't know. Hat on My Head, definitely people resonate. A song called Krista's Way.
Is it about Super ZW?
It is. It is.
Krista Whitmire.
Yeah, Krista Whitmire. Yep. It's another one.
So music, inspirations these days, what are you drawn to? Or is it not similar kind of thing? Because we're a little bit older, a little bit wiser.
I don't think, like, a lot of when I say I'm inspired, I don't necessarily mean I'm trying to sound like them, because a lot of times I would never sound like the people that I'm inspired by. Like, there's a guy named Leif Volbeck that I listen to a lot, and I don't sound anything like him, but I just love his music, and it makes me want to make music. There's another guy I discovered this past week called Freddie Eaglesmith. And his first 3 songs on Spotify, I've had him on loop all week. Those are new ones. Phoebe Bridgers. I love Phoebe Bridgers. Been doing a lot of scoring, film work scoring, that kind of thing. So
talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, I coming out of COVID, I worked with Gerard Elmore, who's a local filmmaker, and he brought me on for a project. And actually, it was for Krista's Way, the documentary he was working on, and they used my song in that. And from that, it spawned into other projects that he'd been working on for NMG. And so I've done a lot of the NMG stuff from those projects. It spawned off. So most of my work now is just studio work for scoring. Most of the stuff I'm doing is music beds, truthfully. It's not really scoring. It's like they need a music bed for something, or but the scoring side of it would be like, a lot of times I'll get these mini, like, kind of documentaries that are like 3 minutes, and I'll create a bed that moves along with the story. And so it's custom made to hit emotional points at certain points in the documentary. If that makes sense. And it could be anything from just guitar to strings to horns to ambient sounds to any sound you can think of could be a score. And for me, it's all of them. I play with all kinds of sounds. A lot of it's ambient.
What kind of equipment are you working with these days?
My interface is a Metric Halo ULN8. I build mics from kits. So I've built kit mics that I use, similar to a U87. I have a couple preamps that I have, but mainly just the ULN. It's Metric Halo's interface. I just go straight into there. I'm lazy. I mean, a lot of guys have a lot of outboard gear, and I have had it, and I'm just like,
You know what works for you, though.
It works.
Good sound. What about your guitar quiver or your musical? What do you have?
I've never been a quiver guy, at least not name brand. I usually go in and I find guitars that I like the sound of, and there's nothing super expensive in my quiver, but they all sound really good. So the only guitar that I have that's really expensive is probably a lap steel that I had custom made an acoustic lap steel, an Eisman, and a guild that I got from my mentor, Todd Adamski, who passed away, and his nephew gave it to me. And those two are kind of expensive, but the rest of them, my quiver is, really basic stuff.
When you're out the door for your nightly gig in Waikiki.
Guild. It's Todd's guild.
Just one, or do you like?
One.
Yeah.
Yep. I'm thinking about retiring it to the studio because it's such a good guitar for the studio. And I'm lazy and I don't like to get it out of where I leave it. When I get home from my gig, I don't bring it into the studio. So I'm like, I'll just grab the closest thing to me. But I think I'm going to retire it there. And then I'm picking up Nui is another guitar company that's just formed, and they've got a guitar for me. So I'm going to go pick that up in Mililani at the Pono Guitar Factory there.
JohnnyHelm.com. You have a gig Wednesday, Aloha Wednesday, December 14th, 2022 at Blue Note Hawaii in Waikiki, 2 shows.
I mean, if you don't come for me, at least come for the other guys. The other guys are slamming musicians. I mean, I'm sitting on stage playing the last time we played, and I was just like, this is an awesome show just because of them. So, yeah.
Before you exit, you were mentioning, I was apologizing about the heat in my studio. I think the AC just kicked in. So we just have a little bit. Now it's like about 79 degrees in here.
Okay. I'm totally comfortable.
What is your studio setup at home? And it's amazing. Thank your wife and your family for just like allowing you space so you can create music or just have your own kind of studio escape. How do you have it set up?
Very similar to the radio setup because I was used to doing radio production. So it's set up. So I have arms just like your mics. I have 2 of my main condenser mics on arms, so I can yank them down. I sit in a little oval like this. My guitars are here, ukulele up here. I have my banjos. Keyboard
you have
pulls
banjos,
out
cool.
Yeah, pull out. Cellos, I use them I don't play it like I wouldn't be able to sit with a symphony and play it, but I use them in the scoring to make basically noises. But it's all at arm's length, so I don't need to move. I don't need to push buttons because everything's set to go. I can just sit down in the studio and start working right off the bat, and there's no setup time whatsoever. All my cables are already set up. So, yeah, very similar to this.
JohnnyHelm.com. Thank you.
Me love you.
Me love you.